Hello, and welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast, brought to you by the Malphurs Group team, where each week we tackle important, actionable topics to help churches thrive. And now, here's your hosts, Scott Ball and AJ Mathieu.
Welcome to episode 9 of the Church Revitalization Podcast. This week, AJ interviews Jason Daye, the Vice President of Mobilization at Outreach Inc., the company behind many of the resources you know like Outreach Magazine, churchleaders.com, sermoncentral.com, and more. In this week's episode, AJ and Jason share why it's important to develop a rhythm of outreach in your church and how you can jumpstart that process. To read this episode's show notes, visit malphursgroup.com/9, the number 9, malphursgroup.com/9. If you like today's episode, please subscribe and share with your friends in ministry. Now, let's dive in.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us this week. I'm really excited about our guest. As Scott just said, we have Jason Daye from Outreach Inc. joining us. And Jason has been a friend now for quite a while and a great ministry partner. And so we're really excited to have him on the podcast. And this is new for the Church Revitalization Podcast. Every week you've heard Scott and I talking, and this week Scott's not here. But don't fear, he'll be back. But we're excited, though, that this is our first guest. So, Jason, we're happy to have you, and congratulations being our first guest on the podcast.
Hey, I did not realize I was the first guest, but that's pretty exciting. I love what you guys are doing at the Malphurs Group. And, I think that's why we have such a good relationship. Your heartbeat in revitalization and coming alongside local churches, that's what we at Outreach do all day long, all year long. And so it's just I just love being with others who are in that same space and have that same heart to really encourage the local church and help them be more effective in living out their mission. So it's an honor to be a part.
Well, great, man. That's so cool. We certainly love what you guys do. And you touch a lot of spaces in ministry, which is something else that we like, which kind of leads me into what I wanted to do first. And that was just, I'm sure everybody has heard the name Outreach and probably Outreach Magazine, maybe. Would that be the most popular thing that people would know you guys by? But tell us kind of the major things that Outreach is involved with that maybe our listeners aren't aware of.
Yeah. Definitely the magazine. When I travel and speak and across the country and doing things, people most readily recognize Outreach Magazine. But beyond that, it's funny when like I said, people are like, "Oh, Outreach Magazine." I'm like, "Yeah, Outreach Magazine." But Outreach Magazine is just a small slice of what we do at Outreach. So just real quickly, the best way to explain it is we have two major arms of ministry here at our organization. One, you could describe as being kind of direct to church, very practical tools and resources, everything from helping churches do their social media, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, those types of things, to direct mail postcards into the community, to signage and banners for churches and church launches. That's kind of direct to church. Like how can we equip local pastors and their churches with tools and resources to make an impact, to share the gospel more often and more effectively. And then the other side is media. That's where the magazine falls into the media side. So we have about 15 different web properties, including the 2 largest web properties in the world, actually, that are dedicated to pastors. So that's churchleaders.com, sermoncentral.com. And those see over, I think it's now around 15 million page views a month.
Wow.
Just pretty insane if you're familiar with, page views on websites. And then, of course, we have the Church Leaders podcast that I host. And so our heartbeat is all, how do we resource the local church?
Yeah, it's so amazing. The vastness of your resources and your reach is just, it's kind of staggering. Few out there rival the impact that Outreach has had over many years now, and the reach that you have worldwide is just phenomenal. So, and of course, that's what we love about you guys, because you are definitely all about how can we help churches do what churches are called to do, and that's make disciples. Right. So, man, it's just really, really cool and a lot of fun to see what you guys have done. Today's topic, though, we're kind of titling this "Developing a Rhythm of Outreach in Your Church," and I really like this idea of developing a rhythm because so many, especially so many of the churches that we work with, are just kind of like reactionary and like, oh, what should we do? Just throwing stuff and seeing what sticks. So what are your initial thoughts on this idea of developing a rhythm of outreach?
Yeah, this is if I could do nothing for the rest of my life but help encourage and equip churches to do this one thing, I would be happy. I would be feel like I had a very fulfilled life, because I think this is so absolutely key. And it's one of those places that I see churches missing, churches of all sizes, honestly, missing, is this development of this rhythm of outreach. Of course, if you're familiar with Outreach Magazine at all, one of the things that we do annually is we do a massive research project along with Lifeway Research, looking at churches across the country that are the most evangelistically effective. These are churches that are the fastest growing. It's not fastest growing because there was a scandal at the church down the road, and it's not sheep shifting.
Yeah,
it's conversion growth. That's what the study is on. And so what we see in these churches that are being very effective with evangelism and disciple making is that they're very intentional in how they look and how they process and think about reaching their community. This idea of being intentional, of planning and preparing, is so absolutely key. But what we find in the vast majority of churches, and I can tell story after story after story, is that, like you said, they tend to be reactionary. It's like, oh, wait, Christmas is happening. That's Jesus' birth. We better do something, and so, but what we have found is when churches are intentional about creating this rhythm of outreach. So really what I teach on, what I encourage, what I coach on is this idea of seasonal outreach. So every quarter, you're driving your people toward a focused outreach opportunity to connect with your community, right? And so we find whenever churches are planning and preparing, and whenever they put language around that, and they are encouraging their people, and they're pushing on these kind of 90-day sprints, every quarter, focusing in on something, the kind of evangelistic temperature of the entire church increases.
Mm-hmm.
And you begin to turn that flywheel and get that flywheel spinning, right? And then that momentum increases, and the impact that churches of all sizes have when they get serious about it, when they get intentional about it, is absolutely amazing. And it's so cool because we work with mega churches all the way down to church plants with a core team of 12 people, to urban churches, to a rural church in a town of 3,500. And what we see the same things when pastors are being intentional, and when the ministry leadership's being intentional about developing these rhythms and saying, okay, this is what we're going to focus on. This is what we're going to preach toward it. We're going to encourage our people toward it. We're going to equip our people to have conversations with their coworkers, neighbors, classmates, friends, whomever that might be. And we give them something to move toward. It's a radical difference. We see revivals taking place in churches of all sizes when they kind of capture this, right? So it's just a huge, huge opportunity. And it's actually low-hanging fruit for churches. When we think of seasonal outreaches, God in his wisdom gave us 2 of the 4 we don't have to think about, right?
Right, yeah. So let's walk through the quarters.
Yeah. So Easter and Christmas are absolute givens, right? Without a doubt, if we're a church, those are the 2 days that we get to declare with great clarity the hope of Jesus in amazing ways. And they're 2 things that, even though we live in a much more post-Christendom culture today, there's still 2 things that everyone is aware, right? Easter and Christmas. And they may not know all the nuances behind it. They may not know the Christian story behind it, but they know of Christmas and Easter. And so those are givens. So those are 2 of the 4 are taken care of. You just got to think and plan and prepare on how do you focus on those 2. How do you mobilize your people to pray for people, invite people for Easter and Christmas, and to have those conversations. So those are the 2 givens. Then we always encourage fall. Fall is huge because in the church world, I know for me as a lead pastor, fall was always the kickoff of our ministry year. It wasn't January.
Yeah.
Really our ministry year tends to start in the fall because families are back in, they're settled, they're home from travels and vacations, kids are back in school, and it's just a natural time to kick off your ministry year. And so fall, for us, one of the big things that we talk about is National Back to Church Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great opportunity. But if you don't do National Back to Church Sunday, there, fall kickoffs, you can do a number of things in the fall to really, plan, prepare, focus, and empower your people to have conversations, gospel conversations, spiritual conversations, invite people to church, invite people to an event, a fall festival, even whatever that might be, right? So fall is key. And then the other is oftentimes it just depends kind of where Easter falls. Churches can look in two different ways. Churches can look something between Christmas and Easter if Easter's late. Sometimes churches look at an outreach, maybe late January, early February, and it might be something really focused in on, we've seen churches do really cool things around even Valentine's Day, like a focus on love and something along those lines, or a way to bless their city. Or, of course, summer, churches, typically try to do something, even though people are moving and they're out, they're on vacation. Summer's often a good time. Churches, traditionally, lots of churches have done like a vacation Bible school.
Yeah.
Or churches do maybe sports camps or art camps, drama camps, different events, a movie in the park. There are different things over the summer that you can do to, again, say, okay, this is what we're doing. This is how we're building a bridge to our community. And we're going to rally our people around it and say, okay, we're all in on this. So those are kind of how the seasons break down, but 4 times a year, Easter, Christmas, and fall for sure. And then depending, in some churches, actually, they'll do 5. They'll do something in the winter.
Yeah.
They'll do Easter, then they'll do something post-Easter, moving into the summer. So
yeah. So what kind of things, sometimes I feel like in recent years, the church has almost given up on summer. It's just kind of become a cultural, social thing that, we know we can't do anything in the summertime. So let's just kind of write it off. The kids got out of school. We'll see you in September, and we'll be thankful for whoever shows up in between. So, what do you think churches can do to really maximize summer more effectively?
Yeah, that's a great question. Great point. One of the places that I pastored was in Scottsdale, Arizona, for over 7 years. And if you can imagine, if you've ever been to, the Valley Phoenix area in the summer, it's not a place a lot of people love to hang out. It gets a little toasty, right? So we would have a lot of people would leave, would travel. A lot of people had a place maybe out in California or up in the mountains, and it would just disappear. And so we every year kind of wrestled with this idea. And I know that it's not just unique to, Arizona, that there are lots of different places where people are gone over the summer, or they're less frequent for sure, taking advantage of, time off for the kids, for school, or whatever it might be. So I think one of the things that you can really do over the summer is, I think, a bit more organically, and I know that word's probably overused, but think a bit more kind of, how can we empower maybe our life groups, our small groups, to think about what outreach might look like for them over the summer. One of the things that we found that worked really well is we did monthly pool parties in homes. So we just kind of figured out and had families volunteer. And then we had pool parties. It was very low key. People brought things in, but it was a barbecue type thing. People invited their friends and their neighbors, whomever happened to be in town at the time. Yeah. It was a great place to hang out, to get to know people who were in the church, who weren't in the church, build some friendships, some relationships. And so there are kind of these, some low key things that you can kind of do over the summer. And the cool thing about that is it really, it kind of puts the responsibility in a way on, others in the church. So it's not just something that's being driven by the ministry leaders and mobilizing people to have conversations or invite, but it's really people in the church are stepping up and opening up their house and they're kind of doing the planning and putting the pieces together. So that's one thing that I've seen very effective. You can do, it doesn't have to be a pool party. It can just be barbecues or whatever. Different neighborhoods can be super effective. The other thing is movie under the stars type of an event. So lots and lots of churches have been kind of taking advantage of this. And one of the things at Outreach is we have a lot of very strong relationships and partnerships with the major movie studios, not only for faith-based films, but also for kind of like family blockbuster films,
Okay.
Lego movie or whatever. So, and because of that, we can help churches get site licenses so they can do these, movie in the park nights or whatever and show the Lego movie, what's really cool or whatever it might be, right? So basically this is an outreach event, right? This is an event for the community. As a church, you're trying to connect with families. The cool thing is, what I always encourage churches to do is really see if you can connect with some businesses or other organizations in your town to help put this on. So you kind of host it, but invite, and if you think strategically, family night. So go talk to the orthodontist in town or the pediatric dentist, you know what I mean? Have a conversation with them and say, hey, listen, we want to do a movie night, the first, Friday night of June, July, and August. So 3 different movie nights in the park, talk to the city, and get some other businesses, a couple other businesses, or maybe one to help sponsor each night. They can help underwrite a lot of it's not expensive to like get a site license to show a movie anyway. But, if you have to rent equipment, to set up, you can rent the equipment. But if you partner with another business or organization in town, one that's just, I think, good for us as the church to do regardless is to, have those partnerships, develop relationships. But it can help underwrite some of the expenses, and it just gives you another kind of connection in the community that you are now building a relationship with, that you as a church could build a long-term relationship with, and who knows the kingdom impact through that. So like those movie nights are fun, great way to connect with people, to let them know that you're there as a church, that you care about the community. It's kind of giving back. It's a fun event. Some collaborating with others in the community. So
I love that idea. And there's so many churches that are in cities that get a lot of tourism during the summer. And so that can be a wonderful outreach opportunity for people that are, they're maybe only in town for a week, but if you've got an opportunity for them to come out and do something fun with their family and hear a good message, that needs to be heard, then that's a great opportunity right there. There's, tens of thousands of churches in places that see spikes in population during the summer. Their people might take off and go somewhere different, but in my family, whenever we travel, on somewhere, and usually during the summertime, if we're going to be traveling over a Sunday, usually ahead of time, we look for a church in the city that we're going to. It's kind of fun to check out other churches, but we don't need to take a vacation from worship. We can still do that anywhere we go. And be with the body of Christ no matter what city we travel to. So, I'd like to see more people think that way as well as they travel. But so, man, that's cool. So, I really like the idea of even, you could have like even a 5th thing going on. And I really think summer is an untapped opportunity for a lot of things. So, So how do you see then, as churches develop these rhythms? You mentioned like you see an increase in like people getting engaged. So, what does that start to look like as people, as you adopt this rhythm? Because we see sermon series and everything that can help kind of draw people in and get them focused on a particular, book or theme in the Bible. So do you see that kind of happening as a church develops a rhythm of outreach, that people just kind of know what's coming? And I'm really kind of dabbling here into vision as well, because if there's some vision, I think this rhythm of outreach can begin to display what that vision is and how people can be a part of it.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. A couple of things that we see and really encourage churches, because every church I talk to, they're like, well, yeah, we do Christmas, we do Easter. But then when you start to peel it back a little bit, we say, okay, so what does Easter look like at your church? and oftentimes it is, I mean, it's a robust celebration that the tomb is empty, that Christ is alive. But beyond that, it may not be a whole lot more than, we bought, Easter lilies to put on the platform. That's like, I mean, like real, like, so it's really kind of peeling back and saying, okay, let's think about these different seasons. How can we help our people? Because this is the biggest thing. When you talk vision, this is what I was kind of thinking a little bit. One of the most challenging things is that we find that our people tend to come to our church to consume something, to receive something, right?
Right.
So they're there because, and this is why, as pastors, we hear things like, the messages or the sermons aren't feeding me, or the worship music isn't, moving me, or whatever, what I mean? Or the youth ministry isn't really helping my kid, So it's because people are coming to the church to almost be served,
right?
To receive something, right? And so, as you know, AJ, the church, that's not at all what the church is designed. I mean, yes, we do come and glorify God, and we do experience the beauty of community and growth in that way. But really, the church is a mission outpost, 100%. I mean, that's what the church is, right?
Right. Yep.
The very beginning. I mean, you can't read through Acts and feel like the church is a place to hang out and receive. Right? So that vision piece is, how do we help our people understand that and kind of break that mindset that we're here to consume, we're here to receive the mission or receive the ministry, when in reality, we are responsible for the ministry. We're responsible for the mission, right? Yeah. So, and that's a mindset change. And so that's why these rhythms of outreach, you're always in a, if you do this correctly, you plan this out, you are always moving toward an outreach of some sort. All year long, there's something in front of you or something that you've just come out of. And so there's this, and that plays into the vision that we are a church for others, right? We're not a church just to make sure that we like what's happening and we're getting what we think we need to get. It's not to diminish, the growth that we as disciples and Christ followers, have and receive. That's a beautiful and important thing. But that growth has got to be attached to, we're growing as missionaries, right? And that's our mindset. So really, I think as you develop and you plan these out, you're thinking again, you're backing up from Easter, a couple months before Easter, and you're already thinking about, what are we doing to help our people understand that we're not just excited because we're going to have a beautiful Easter worship gathering, and we're going to have special music, and we're going to feel so good. But who are the people in my life that don't know Jesus? And this is a perfect opportunity for them to hear the gospel clearly presented, to get to witness biblical community and understand there's a place for you to belong. That's what church gives you, that opportunity, and there's a mission for you to be a purpose for you, for your life. So that's just so key in just pushing that out there and taking the time and letting that roll into, like you said, the vision of the church and the understanding of who we are as the church, right?
Right. Yeah. Really developing the rhythm is a strategy. If we kind of put this in strategic planning context, that is a strategy for achieving the mission of the church, which is to make and mature disciples towards a vision of seeing, a changed and affected world by, conversions of the heart. And so, this becomes a strategy component. I just love this. I mean, even the word rhythm, I just love that because, it's such a part of creation, sunrise, sunset, birth, maturity to death, the seasons, that God created. So having something that people, everybody, I live in Texas, and so we're really looking forward to fall. I know you're already getting it in Colorado Springs, but we've had a break from summer this week, but people look forward to that. We know the next coming season. And so we always have that anticipation. And so this developing a rhythm of outreach, that's what our church should be, is always looking forward to that next season, knowing what's coming up and anticipating how God can use it and what he'll do among us. So, man, such a fantastic topic. So the last thing I want to touch on before we let you go is what we do, how we handle these outreach opportunities. because so many churches, they say, well, we're going to have an event. They do it. Maybe they've got a little bit of, pre-work that they do, or some marketing or publication that they do ahead of it. But then they fall off. They have the event. They say, okay, how many attended? That was great. But there's more to it than that. And so talk to us about, what do we do after an event to make sure that we maximize what we've just done?
Yeah. And this is probably a whole nother show, brother.
Yeah, you're right. And Scott and I have talked about this before, but yeah, because I know you guys have resources and stuff available.
Yeah. But it's important. And I'm glad you brought it up, because this is one of the things that, as churches are kind of stepping into this is one of the things that we really, really emphasize. And I really try to help them prioritize, because you're exactly right. It's kind of like, getting married, right? All these plans and preparations go into the wedding day. The wedding happens, it's awesome. But then how prepared are you for, the actual relationship?
Marriage.
Right, exactly, marriage. So I kind of liken it to that, because the last thing we want to do is get our people so engaged and involved in something. Let's say Christmas coming up, big Christmas Eve worship gathering. We're inviting the entire city in. Everyone's so involved and so engaged that they get there, they do it, they're wiped out. Your volunteers are wiped out. You as a pastor are wiped out, and it's over. And here you've reached all these new people, and you're so exhausted that you can't do anything in building that relationship. So when it comes down to it, Jesus commanded us to make disciples. I mean, that's what it's all about. So to make disciples, we really need to build relationships, right? I mean, you really can't make a disciple, be in a disciple-making relationship, without the relationship part. That's kind of key, right?
Yeah.
So if we're making disciples, we kind of back that up and say, okay, then we need to, really develop relationships. If we want to develop relationships, we need to back that up and say, we need to connect with people. If we're not connected with people, we're not building relationships. If we're not building relationships, we can't make disciples. You got to kind of think through that whole piece. And so because of that, really your event, your Christmas celebration is really the right in between the whole connecting with people. That's kind of the publicity, getting the word out on social media, giving your people invite cards to invite their friends, all that. That's kind of the connecting with people. And you're shifting into this building a relationship. When they show up, you get to begin building a relationship, but you have to remember the end game is making disciples.
Right.
So you have to be thinking about what's next for all these people we've connected with. What's next? Like, how are we taking that relationship more, deeper, so that we can really make disciples? Because I mean, God can do whatever he wants, and without a doubt, on an Easter Sunday, or a fall kickoff Sunday, or a Christmas worship gathering, yes. Are there people that are moved by the Spirit and commit themselves to Christ and are ready to go, ready to go on that discipleship journey? Yes, that happens, and we love it. We celebrate it, and we pray for that. Typically, it's because the Holy Spirit's been at work in their life long before they show up, right? We know this, right? It's not that, I preach such a great sermon, all these people, it's the Holy Spirit's at work, right? So, but typically, especially in our culture today, the majority of people do not make that commitment at one of the, at a kind of a big Sunday. I mean? They don't make that commitment. That is just one more piece of us building trust with them, building a relationship. So that means we have to be intentional about what's next. Yeah. What are we inviting them to next? What is their next step? What do we have so that we can that's why I used to, for Easter, and this is just a little nugget, for Easter, I used to preach a series kind of through the Lenten season leading up to Holy Week and Easter. And so it would kind of culminate on Easter Sunday, like it'd ramp up to that. But then God really got a hold of my heart on this whole idea of, this is many years ago, but this whole idea of, wait a second, we're connecting with people in our community. We're inviting people in on Easter. So I started launching a sermon series on Easter Sunday. So Easter Sunday is week one of a series, so we kick off with, resurrection life, but next week, so then there's a natural, if you experience something today that is intriguing to you and you want to learn more, next week it will be part 2 of, and so it's just kind of this natural thing. So kind of when you start thinking with these rhythms of outreach, you begin looking at all these things a little bit differently, simply because of the follow-up that you mentioned, that that's the key component, and we can't forget that.
Yeah. So really having this rhythm of outreach, it really gives you that opportunity that as you hit maybe these 4 or even 5 high points every year, if you have a good communication plan after that, you're only talking about, a month and a half of maybe some general follow-up before you can begin promoting the next big thing to encourage those folks to continue to be engaged or to start being engaged with you. So it really gives you several points throughout the year that you never have any long lull that you're not inviting them to something.
Right. And the cool thing is those guests, those newcomers who have come in, who've begun to get connected, oftentimes they're the most fun and eager to okay, well, who's my friend that I'm going to, as you're rolling into that next season, and you're mobilizing your people, you're encouraging them, hey, be praying, who is God putting on your heart for you to invite or for you to have a conversation with. A lot of the newer people, they get really excited. This is how you can see this momentum just can build. I mean, this revitalization in a local church can literally happen over the course of a year and 18 months, is when it comes to this component of it, right? If you get really kind of intentional about this.
Yeah. Such a great opportunity for the church, worldwide, certainly in the United States, and dealing with just the way our culture is and where our society is right now. So, man, Jason, thank you so much for joining us. This was a great conversation. I hope it's been, and I'm sure it has been, an idea generating conversation for our listeners to have heard. So anybody that's listening, Jason, is there any major conferences or anything coming up that you're going to be at that people could connect with you anytime soon?
Unfortunately, I won't be anywhere where people can connect in that manner, but feel free to reach out with me. I'm on Twitter at Jason Daye, and it's Daye. Don't mistake me for the professional golfer. The other Jason Daye. I'm the original Jason Daye, but it's Jason Daye. Feel free you can message me on Twitter. Or, you can reach out to me here at Outreach, jday@outreach.com. Be happy to help. Any way we can help, we're here.
Yeah. Fantastic resources. And of course, we can't let you go without also talking about the Church Leaders Podcast. I'm a huge fan. So we definitely encourage all of our listeners to subscribe to the Church Leaders Podcast, because every week Jason has really great guests on that you're going to get to know some fantastic people that you've heard of, people that you've not heard of. And that happens to me all the time. I'm like, I didn't know who that was, but now I want to get their book, or I want to, talk to them some more. So you just constantly have really great guests on. So please check out the Church Leaders Podcast as well. So Jason, thanks again for being with us. We really appreciate your ministry, your heart for the church, and everything that you're doing over there at Outreach.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I love what the Malfers Group is doing, and just the encouragement. My big thing is, as a pastor for many, many years, is the encouragement that we as pastors need. Because the enemy tries to beat us up a lot, and that's one of the things I love about all the resources you guys provide. Just the content you push out. It's all practical, but it's really encouraging pastors to say, hey, we're here for you. We believe in you. God believes in you. Yeah. Let's take this down. Let's just be faithful in the time we have. So I love what you guys are doing, brother.
Yeah, thanks, man. And I appreciate you saying that, especially that last comment, because there's a lot of stuff. People write things out there that kind of are doom and gloom. And we do believe that everybody's church can change. It's not easy, but we believe that when you're focused on what God is about through the church, that your church can change, and that's what we want to do, is come alongside and help you do that if you're listening and you feel like that's you. So, hey man, thanks again. It was a blessing to us and our listeners to have you, and we're looking forward to speaking with you again soon.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Church Revitalization Podcast. If you liked this episode, please share it with your friends in ministry and subscribe to the podcast. To access today's show notes, please visit malfersgroup.com/9, the number 9, malfersgroup.com. /9.